later this morning, House Democrats will mark 5 years today since the Capitol insurrection on January 6, 2021, by reconvening the select committee that investigated that attack. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries says today's hearing will examine ongoing threats to free and fair elections posed, he says, by the current Trump administration. Join us now, former Lieutenant Governor of Georgia, Jeff Duncan. He is scheduled to testify at today's hearing. As a Republican, he broke with Trump after the 2020 election, becoming a vocal critic amid Trump's pressure to overturn the election results in his state. Duncan officially switched his affiliation to the Democratic Party last year and now is running for the governor of Georgia. Mr. Duncan, good to have you with us this morning. I want to talk about your campaign and what you look forward to, but let's talk about this anniversary, a somber one, 5 years since the attack on the Capitol, January 6, 2021. Remind our viewers, because so much has been clouded and whitewashed and attempted to be rewritten in these 5 years since that terrible day, about where you were and the pressure you were feeling from the Trump administration to flip results ahead of that election.
Yeah, we were on the front lines of Donald Trump's attempts to not validate an election, which is what he continues to try to explain his egregious actions as validating. It was an organized, unlawful attempt through multiple acts to try to upend democracy. And, look, he was putting pressure on us to try to call a special session for no reason other than to just continue to sow seeds of doubt and to create chaos. That was their only game plan, was to create chaos and plant enough seeds for doubt on social media, in interviews and phone calls. He was very granular. As you continue to hear some of these conversations play out, last week the New York Times released some audio where he put pressure on the Speaker of the House. I was the Lieutenant Governor and the President of the Senate. The Speaker of the House is over on the House side, where he talked about the pressure that he was putting on him. And he's even talked so much about the person, one of the people we're running against in our election for governor is Burt Jones. He said he was one of his. So, yeah, this was a very granular attempt by Donald Trump and the MAGA supporters to upend democracy in Georgia.
To your everlasting credit, along with the governor there and to Brad Raffensperger, the attorney general in the state of Georgia, you all, as Republicans who supported Donald Trump at the time, said no, you did not win this state, and we're not going to find those nearly 12,000 votes you need to win the state. Can you talk a little, Lieutenant Governor, about what it's been like in these 5 years since? Because so many people in your state, so many elected leaders did circle the wagons around Donald Trump and support his false claims that the election were stolen. What has it been like for you to continue to say, no, they weren't, and I oppose Donald Trump?
Yeah, it's been difficult. I mean, there's no way to hide it. It's certainly been difficult for me and my family over the last 5 years. I mean, in the immediate aftermath of the election results and Donald Trump's lies, we had armed guards around our house. We had, death threats coming in. We had our kids getting picked on at school. Folks stopped waving at us in the neighborhood. I mean, this continues year after year after year. But I continue to be asked, why am I doing this? And it's because I'm guided by our family motto of doing the right thing will never be the wrong thing. And this is the right thing to do. To that point, the right thing to do for me in that moment was to stand up against Donald Trump and to speak at the DNC and to campaign for Kamala Harris around the country and to now be a Democrat. It's the right thing to do because being a Republican right now only means one thing. You have to just bow down to Donald Trump and accept whatever bad idea he has in that moment in time, whatever attacks against democracy he wants to think of that morning. You've got to rubber stamp it. And I'm not willing to do that. And I see millions of other Republicans starting to wake up and see the other side.
Lieutenant Governor, I want to ask about your run for governor and switching parties in just a second. But obviously, as Willie says, a lot of other Republicans broke with Donald Trump after January the 6th. There won't be many of them there who are supporting your efforts today. What is it about remembering that election and remembering how Donald Trump handled that election that is important for America today? Why does America need to keep its eye on what the president still says? He still said on the plane up from Mar-a-Lago that he won 2020.
I think that's the point. Some folks ask me, Jeff, why do you continue to talk about the post-election issues on January 6th? And it's because Donald Trump continues to talk about it. MAGA continues to talk about it in a way that's trying to whitewash history. The reality is it was an egregious attempt to overthrow a legal election and to usurp democracy. And I'm on this journey to put the facts out there, to continue to tell the truth, so that something like this doesn't happen again. I think we have to understand, most Americans don't realize how close we came to the edge of breaking democracy. If just a handful of state legislators like myself would have just turned around and said, you know what, actually, I changed my mind. I've seen enough proof here. There's some fraud happening. Just to make political points with Donald Trump, we would have a totally different landscape and would be referred to as one of these third world countries that we're talking about in other parts of the world that have erroneous elections.
You've been a lifelong Republican. You now have to go out and persuade Georgian Democrats to vote for you as their gubernatorial candidate. You understand that some of them may be suspicious. Why is this guy who's always been a Republican, now they want Democrats, some progressive Democrats, you'll need to have them vote for you as well. How hard a sell is it going to be?
You know, some of my skeptics out on the campaign trail ask, Jeff, have you lost your mind? And the answer is no, I found my heart. I really, truly wake up every day as a proud Democrat with a better toolkit to serve the needs of Georgians, to meet people where they're at. I don't have to make excuses when I drive by that hospital and see folks scared to go in because they don't have health insurance. I don't have to drive by that school any longer and blame the teachers instead of the government systems that support those schools. I don't have to make excuses. I don't have to lie for Donald Trump or be expected to lie for Donald Trump. I wake up with a whole new batch of ideas. And look, my job in this campaign is to meet Georgians where they're at. I'm focused on three things. I think most Georgians, including Republicans, are worried about three things: the affordability crisis, the health care crisis, and the Donald Trump crisis. All of this stuff going on in Venezuela and Greenland and all this stuff that Donald Trump's creating is not solving a single person's problems that's standing at the grocery line that can't afford all those groceries. That person that just graduated from college, or that family, middle-class family, that can't afford rent. None of that's being solved. Or somebody waking up today without health insurance. Donald Trump's not solving America's problems. He's just continuing to sow chaos around the world. It's a Ponzi scheme. That's what Donald Trump's running, is a Ponzi scheme that's every day got to get 1% shinier, 1% more bombastic, so that you forget about all the egregious promises he made the day before.
All right, former Lieutenant Governor and current Democratic gubernatorial candidate for Georgia, Jeff Duncan, thank you very much for coming on the show this morning.